I'm going to be talking about South Africa because obviously it's been in the news a lot, and America has taken an unprecedented position after Donald Trump has basically said that they're going to stop funding and start looking at interfering with the South African government. The ANC is in a coalition government currently, and it all basically started with land seizures. But first, if you want to support the work we're doing and get something wonderful in return, you can buy our magazine. It is a beautiful work of art, as you can see. All of the pages have wonderful artwork in. It's a lovely sight to behold, and there's lots of written articles from very insightful people in here. And I'm very much looking forward to reading this. I'm not in this one. I was in the last one, but I've always enjoyed these. Rory does a fantastic job putting them together, and it's something that will look very nice, and I'm sure you'll enjoy reading. It's well worth the money.
They smell nice too.
That's true.
It's nice and sturdy as well, isn't it? It's not like tissue paper. It's actually
No.
decent.
You want something aesthetic that'll expand your mind, look no further.
If a woman comes to your house, sees that on your shelf, you're sorted.
Even if you yourself are a woman. Anyway. So it all started with this. It was Cyril Ramaphosa signing an expropriation bill into law, which said that the government can basically expropriate land from anyone with no compensation for pretty much any reason. And understandably, landowners in South Africa were upset about this because they're rather attached to keeping their own private property, funnily enough. And it's just seen as a cynical way to take land off of the white farmers, which is clearly the case, isn't it? Because it's not exactly like a new tactic in that part of the world, is it? It happened in Zimbabwe, or Rhodesia as I call it, and it's happened to some extent in South Africa already. And what happened is Trump accused South Africa of massive human rights violations, which is true. You have a right to own your own property, your own private property, and just because it's politically expedient to the ANC, who are trailing in the polls, I think they got less than 50% in the latest election for the first time since 1994 and the end of apartheid. And so they're worried. And so what they were doing was trying to win up support, as far as I'm aware, by saying that they're going to do this, but it's not going to end well for them. And in fact, after Trump said this, and after he suspended aid, there was lots of support from white South Africans, as you can imagine, because they're obviously being targeted for this. And they agree that they are victims of anti-white racism, which is undeniable. It's written into the law. And
that's literally the point of the law. So
it is, yeah.
You can't argue against it.
Not to mention the endless evidence of the quote-unquote farm murders.
Of course, yeah.
It's just
irrefutable, yeah.
It's just, as far as I'm concerned, some sort of low-burn genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the ANC's not doing nearly enough about it to prevent it. In fact, they're enabling it, aren't they?
Well, it's a state-sanctioned pogrom, really.
So I always like bringing this one up. It's the number of racialized laws in South Africa. And you can see a graph here, and there's a big dip that bottoms out in 1994, and then it goes up again. So you had racial laws under apartheid, it dropped down again, and then it goes back up and exceeds even the apartheid era for the number of racial laws, this time against the white minority. It's as simple as that.
So it is literally revenge.
Yeah, of course it is.
So two wrongs do make a right. I see. I understand.
You can hear it from black South Africans all the time, where they're just spiteful. They look at the success of white people in South Africa, and they don't understand that it comes with hard work and understanding and being educated. They don't understand all of the work that goes into European civilization, basically, and they just think that we've somehow cheated them out of it, like it's their birthright. And this is very similar. We actually talked about cargo cults, didn't we? In the Andaman Islands, in one of my contemplation series on the website. And they believed that all of the goods that the Americans had in World War II, they were on the island, and they saw all of this advanced technology. They were living in the Stone Age, and they thought that these things of technology, these were created by their ancestors, because they never saw the Americans making them. They couldn't conceive of the notion that they were manufacturing it at home and bringing it along. They thought, well, we work hard, therefore these things belong to us. They couldn't put the two and two together, and I think exactly the same phenomenon is going on here.
Yeah.
And what has actually happened is parties have accused the white minority groups of treason for this. So
How does that work?
So
treason to what? A government that's trying to steal their stuff?
So it was South Africa's ex-president, Jacob Zuma, who's got the backing of the Zulus, filed a treason complaint against AfriForum, which is an Afrikaans group. So white group.
Okay.
So it's basically him saying you're being treasonous to the people of Africa.
By not giving us your stuff.
Yes. Obviously nonsense. And they're trying to describe it as, we've just added this to allow us to develop our economy, but as we can see from newspapers here, they're just describing them as land grabbers, and they're just moving onto farms in big crowds, as you can see, just trying to take stuff. That's all it is. There's nothing really to it. It's just black people want to take stuff from white people, and they feel like they deserve it because they don't understand the work that went into creating the civilization that they can neither understand nor recreate themselves. And
or even maintain.
No, or maintain.
And also, correct me if I'm wrong, is the dominant black ethnic group in South Africa, is it now Bantus and not Khoi?
I think so.
So
I'm not entirely sure.
So I mean, it's not even like they were there before the Afrikaners, the people who became
they justify it as, well, we've got more right to it because at least we're African. That's the way that I think that they'll square that circle.
Oh, okay. But I mean, surely, if they want to make that argument, it's the Khoi and people like that who should have a say. But
so,
not that I think they should steal it.
We're seeing things like this, where they're reporting on the majority of farm ownership here, 72% white, which is why the farms grow food. And there are people like this guy. The real genocide happening in South Africa is towards black people. Oh, really? Who's doing that then?
Oh no, they're making all our food. Oh, I'm literally dying. Oh, they're feeding me.
Terrible.
I saw this about a while ago now, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, something in that ballpark. It was that the farm murders were getting a bit of traction in some of the mainstream media. And so the BBC put out a big piece about how actually, if there's any large-scale murdering, organised murders going on, it's against black people in South Africa.
Well, we'll soon see from a black man in South Africa that that's not true. But I'm not going to get onto that quite yet, because it seems like they're trying to respond and sort of fob off Trump, which is not going to be a smart move, by deliberately going to get nuclear deals with Iran and Russia as thumbing their nose at this, because this was only a few days after Trump said what he did. And it's very obvious to me that they're going to turn to them and rub the US's nose in it. But it's a very flawed strategy, really. They're just going to alienate themselves from a lot of the world that they rely on.
Back in the 90s, in the Blair era, they did, the Britain and the United States as some sort of bloc, did deals with both South Africa, the Nelson Mandela South Africa, and Libya, when they still had Gaddafi. They did deals of, we'll give you all sorts of stuff, but just don't start a nuclear, a uranium or plutonium enrichment program. Just don't do it. And they got the deals. There's pictures of Blair in a tent with Gaddafi and stuff. And they did one with South Africa. But the thing is, sort of let them, the technical ability to make fissionable material will be beyond them. If they can't really maintain farms or any sort of agriculture.
They don't even have electricity or running water anymore.
They can't maintain electricity pylons. They're probably not going to be able to enrich uranium to weapons grade level.
I mean, how do you know, Poe? Have you got a scientific study proving that?
It's just my gut. It's just my gut.
Okay,
feeling.
so not scientific.
No,
All right,
no.
Anecdotal evidence.
Yeah, anecdotal.
Let's have a look at some of the race relations going on. And I found this interesting. So this guy, I think he's the top guy in the police in KwaZulu-Natal, which is where all of the Zulus are, in the east of the country. And I'm going to play a short bit of this, just to hear what he's saying, because in the current political climate in South Africa, this
a lot
was
of activities
quite impressive.
happening in and around this
I'm
district.
going to skip it ahead a little
40%.
bit. Hang on. Where is it? Just want to get to about there. Okay.
Going forward, our perpetrators, Premier, we felt we must put this light so that we can identify what is our problem, because we need to analyze what is the problem. The problem we have, you forgive me on this, but this is not me talking, these are the stats. We have a problem with the black man in South Africa. We have a
So he goes
I
on
didn't understand it. We have a problem with the black man. What?
in South Africa in terms of
okay.
crime.
All right. Okay.
So he goes on to list, I'm not going to play the full video because I think a lot of people won't be able to pick up on the accent. Out of the 60,000 crimes in his district, 57,000 were black men, and presumably a minority of them were black women as well. So that's a pretty, and that's in the past 5 years as well. And so he's saying, like, listen, we can basically blame white people all we want, but the problem is us.
So when the BBC was saying, oh, actually, it's black people who are victimised more than anybody else, imagine my shock that it's black people doing the victimising.
But this man understands per capita. This man knows how he'd feel if he didn't have breakfast this morning.
Fair play to him.
Mm-hmm.
No, honestly, for such a racialised country like South Africa, where it's so divisive, fair play to him for actually saying it. Yeah, credit to him.
And the funny thing is that this guy is pretty beloved. There are loads of here's an article basically singing his praises about how he does such a good job, and I wasn't able to find a bad word about him, which is interesting. He's basically saying, listen, the problem isn't the white people, it's us.
The one not corrupt man in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. And there are lots of posts here that have done quite well on X of people just praising him. They're at it again, talking about just shooting criminals all the time, which is great. You know, that's what you need to do. Loads of people saying he's cleaning up KwaZulu-Natal, taking down all the criminals. Every post I was able to see, and I looked for quite a while, was glowing with praise. And just to sort of hammer this home a little bit, I found a quote from him, and he says, "It is up to God to judge the criminals for their barbaric actions. However, it is up to me to make sure that they meet him sooner than expected."
That's a great line.
No,
That's great.
if that came out of the mouth of like a real badass sheriff from New Mexico or something, you'd be like, "Yeah, cool. Yeah, he's our guy."
Yeah. But clearly what's accidentally happened is this man has internalized whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible.
That must be it.
Terrible to see the self-hating racism this man is projecting by protecting his communities.
Is he our guy? He's like the online right of South Africa. Need to start making memes. Need to start churning out memes of this guy.
All he needs to do is do his job, and that's enough for us.
So,
yes.
What there is a lot of, though, is this sort of thing. There's a guy here talking about double standards. Remember, your tax money funds this organisation. And this guy says, "You're no longer whites, you're now our Neanderthals. Now you know your place. Human rights are for humans only." And we see
strong words.
We see this a lot from people in South Africa. Here are some more people. White people are inferior species to us. They have Neanderthal blood in them, which is true.
It's good.
It's great.
Thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Where do you think I got this brow from?
We are dealing with the weakest whites, which I don't think is even true either. White people are just below human beings.
I mean, to describe the settlers and the Boers as some of the weakest whites, no.
It's the opposite. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
They're the frontiersmen. They're living amongst very violent people that want them dead, and they're supposedly weak, apparently. You're negotiating with an animal, a wild dog. And
says one of the most dysgenic people ever.
I know. Look at them.
The weakest whites, and look at his biceps are the same width as his forearms.
Yeah,
but we're the weakest. Okay.
He's fed
fine.
more by UNAID than he is by his own parents. But as survived the jive, Tom Rousel points out here, someone needs to inform these gentlemen that if 2% Neanderthal DNA makes Europeans non-human, then them having up to 19% ghost species DNA doesn't exactly reinforce their argument that they are Homo sapiens and we aren't, which is true. And, of course, there's...
You don't have to make value judgments off of any of this.
Mm-hmm.
You mess with Survive the Jive at your peril.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Right. It will
great stuff.
He's going to dunk on you if you start talking about genetics.
Yeah, he has all of the information at hand at all times. I don't know how he does it, but he does.
But this is very true. We've talked about this before, haven't we? When we talked about the evolution of humanity, that there's this ghost species that exists in Africa, and also there was some interbreeding between modern Homo sapiens in Africa and also Homo erectus that preceded them as well. There's an overlapping period, and that could be traced.
Well, it's just really, really complicated, isn't it? There's the old, now really out of date, out of Africa hypothesis, where there's Australopithecus, and there's like a single African mother from which everyone is descended, which is now that's not the case. That's,
there were hominids outside of Africa long before modern humans existed. But I don't.
We digress.
As much as I'd like to go down that rabbit hole, I don't have the time. So let's have a look at what this is resulting in. Well, South Africans have to have massive gates in their house, in the middle of their house. This isn't their front door. This is a gate between, I think, their bedrooms from the rest of the house. So they had to turn their own home into a prison because of this sort of thing. And then, of course, if you point this out, the ADL will call you racist and obsessed with the white genocide that they put in quotation marks, but is undeniably happening, let's be honest. And there are possible issues for the government in South Africa, thankfully. They've postponed their budget for the first time because they're in a coalition government for the first time since the end of apartheid. And basically the pro-business DA, Democratic Alliance, and also some of the ANC itself have objected to a proposal to increase VAT by 2% to 17%. And this has basically scuppered their entire budget. And Ramaphosa here explicitly said about this crisis that budget fallouts are how governments collapse, and brought up Germany. There are other examples as well, some in Africa. I think it was, where was it? Kenya, I think? Somewhere like that. I'm really stretching my memory here. But even he's acknowledged, listen, this is an existential threat to our government here. So it is entirely possible that if they don't come to terms on this budget, then the ANC could be out of power for the first time since 1994, which would be massive. Whether a worse party takes their place is difficult to say, but I would be quite surprised. But who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
I don't really know anything about South African opposition, because my gut reaction to that was, good, the ANC have run that country absolutely into the ground, turned it into some sort of living nightmare. But yeah, I don't know what would come next, though. It might be something even worse. I don't know. Do you know?
There are some parties there that aren't as bad, but there's no clear front runner to my mind that'd be a party where if they enacted their policies in Britain, we'd be like, yeah, they're great.
All right, okay.
So it's sort of...
We haven't got one of those here, have we?
That's true. But to be fair, yeah. So with that pointed out, let's have a look at just some of the decline that the ANC has overseen. I know we've covered some of this before, but just to refresh your memory, you look at 2010 versus 2023, it's obviously got worse. The decline from the apartheid era infrastructure is obvious. You see paved roads versus dirt roads. And I wonder why this is. Here we know. Here we are. You can see how we know this, because they pickaxe up the road and sell it on. Because rather than having an actual real job, they just destroy their own infrastructure for their own short-term financial benefit.
So they sell broken up slabs of asphalt?
Yes.
To who? For what purpose?
Is there much of a return on that?
I don't think so. To my mind, that is a lot of hard work for something that's not only counterproductive, but doesn't even pay that well.
Classic workman, one guy doing stuff while
everybody else watches.
He's not got the right kit for it either, has he?
I've never seen that before. I have seen people dismantling electricity pylons for the steel.
Just you've presaged me perfectly.
Right.
So,
but they're doing it even to tarmac.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, how short-sighted.
Well, they were taking oil out of electrical transformers to use it for cooking. Which, by the way, safety announcement, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's not going to be
That's a terrible
healthy.
idea.
But it's got to the point where even hospitals in Johannesburg, in the city of Johannesburg, are not able to maintain their electricity because before they were trying to insulate... this was it from 2023, that they were trying to insulate lots of hospitals from all of the power outages and making them exempt. But it's to the point now where lots of hospitals are not exempt from load shedding, as they call it, but actually it's just they don't have enough power to power the entire country because it's approaching being a complete failed state. And you can even see it in their education. So apparently 80% of grade 3 pupils still cannot read for meaning, as in they can't read and understand the meaning behind it. And I think it was only 17%, possess the expected foundational knowledge and skills, and only 3% demonstrate advanced reading comprehension, which, if you want a functioning country, is not a good thing. I don't need to tell you that, it's obvious. And
I mean, in a modern economy, certainly, because reading things is kind of important.
Now, does my statement about having the technical capability to run a uranium enrichment program start making a bit more sense?
I agreed with you anyway.
I'd like to see the kind of instructions they draw up for themselves if they can't read. Just
You hit the uranium really, really hard, you might split the atom with a hammer.
get the pickaxe.
That's not nuclear advice, by the way. Just to be clear. And
Uranium ore and a pickaxe is all you need to.
That's what they were trying to do. They weren't trying to dig up the roads. They'd put some uranium down, and they were trying to set it off.
That's what it must have been. And
Back into it.
Here are some South African government employees dealing with a flood. Here they are, working hard.
Wow.
This reminds me of the African fire department, the fire services that we saw in that one video.
Where they were throwing rocks at the fire.
Throwing rocks at the fire.
And continually missing even they're throwing rocks at a fire they couldn't even hit, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, this is terrible. They're wasting their time, obviously.
Oh my God.
A bucket at a time, and they're just pouring it off.
They're just pouring it.
It's a bit lethargic.
Yeah, they're not
The
exactly
effort
being
is a bit-
impassioned. Also, why are they not using the bucket to scoop it into? That would be way quicker.
Well,
than
that would
tiny little.
Josh, this is government bloat. Although, if you just scooped it up, then those other two people would be unemployed.
These are actually USAID employees, I think.
Yeah, that would make sense actually.
Like the absolute reluctance to actually do some work, do some hard work.
I wonder why the Dutch and English settlers built civilization in South Africa. I can't put my finger on it.
3 jobs were made through that effort, right? Okay, GDP, the gains were immense.
Line goes up.
Yeah, the line went up. All is well.
South Africa is winning as the line went up.
Well, that's my update on South Africa. I'll be keeping an eye on it, and if anything else happens, I'll make sure to cover it, because it is very, very important, and I know we've made light of some of this, but the situation for the white minority in South Africa isn't anything to laugh about, and if you are in South Africa, my heart does go out to you. I'm not going to do the same thing as Elon, though. And yes, stay safe and know that there are people outside of South Africa that want to help you and are doing their best to have your back. If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.